Today in our 2018 Jeep Wrangler JL Unlimited, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Demco taillight wiring kit, part number DM9523010. Whenever we're flat towing our Jeep down the road, it's very important that our light signals match up from the motorhome and the Jeep. That way we're slowing down or changing lanes, everybody around us knows what's going on and we can all be safe. Our diode kit is going to take that signal from our motorhome and transfer it to our Jeep so that they blink and turn on at the same time. And the really nice thing about our diodes is that they're not going to change the outward appearance of our Jeep at all. And the fact that once we have it installed, they're not going to have any maintenance. Unlike some of the magnetic lights that we'd have to hook up, run our wire every time we want to tow, we can simply have these already in and we just have the connection cord between our motorhome and Jeep to hook up. Our diodes are also going to make sure that it protects our vehicle's wiring. We don't have to worry about any kind of short circuits or anything that may arise on the motorhome end because our diodes are only going to let power go through one way. So we don't have to worry about any damage to our Jeep. Our kit is going to come with all the wire and diodes necessary to get it installed. Keep in mind this is only one component of our flat tow setup. And now that we've seen how they work and gone over some of the features, let's show you how to get them installed. To begin our installation, we're going to grab the length of wire out of our kit. Now our base plate came with a bracket to mount any kind of electrical accessory at the front here. So I'm going to take one end of my wire. They're both going to have connectors on them. And for now, I'm just going to pass it through the bracket and make sure I have enough slack to wire everything up. So I'll just wrap it around my base plate. That way I know I don't have to worry about it falling through the bracket and losing it. But we're not going to be using either end of these connectors. So I'm going to leave this one on for now just to help keep it attached. But I'm going to go ahead and cut the end off of the other end of my wire. I'm going to cut as close to the connector as I can so I don't have to worry about wasting any length of wire. Now we'll take the free end of wire and we're going to want to route this all the way back to the back bumper. So I'll go ahead and run this and I'll show you how I routed it. So I ran my wire up and I went through the hole that's in my plastic shield here for my base plate. And then once it came through, made sure to secure it so it's not going to be rubbing against any kind of moving parts or any heat sources. Using some zip ties, following it towards the back, went over the axle, tying it along the frame here, and then all along the driver's side frame rail, we have a wire loom that's wrapped in heat shield. That way it'll stay protected against the exhaust. I just zip tied my wire kind of behind it so it'll stay in place, but again, as far away from the exhaust as possible. Followed along the frame, came up, went over the subframe and the rear axle until I have it drop down right on the side by my muffler. Now we're going to take all of our excess wire and for now we're just going to set it aside and we're going to move up top and take our taillights out. If we come to the inside of our hatch, we're going to have this cover right here that's going to be covering up the mounting points for our taillights. So we can take a flat blade screwdriver and pop it out, and if we look inside, it's going to be a rather large fastener, so we're going to want to loosen it up so that our taillight will come out. Now to take it out, I'm going to use a 10mm socket. We can loosen it up and we can pull the entire assembly out. Now we're going to want to grab our taillight assembly and we're going to kind of have to work it loose a little bit, but once it does come out, you just kind of want to pull straight back. And then we can come to the connector. There's going to be a little red tab. We'll slide that back and we'll push on the black tab right in front of it. You're going to squeeze that black tab and pull at the same time. And we'll separate the two plugs. Now we're going to set our taillight assembly aside right now and we'll take out the other one as well. So now that we have our taillights unplugged, I went ahead and turned my headlights on so we have our taillight signal sending out to the back. We're going to want to test each one of these pins to see which wire and pin is corresponding for the taillight signal. So if we look inside on the top row, There'll be 3 pins right next to each other. The farthest inside pin is going to be our taillight wire. And if we follow it to the back side, it's going to be the white wire with this very faint gray stripe on it. We're going to want to write that down or remember that that wire is going to be our taillight signal. I went ahead and turned my taillights off. Now we're going to be looking for the brake signal. So it helps if you get an extra set of hands and they push on the brake. That way we can isolate each signal and find out which pin is the correct one. So again, if we look at our connector, we'll have 2 pins on the same row as the 3 next to each other. The farthest outer one is going to be our brake signal. And if we go to the back, it's going to be the solid yellow wire. That's going to be our driver's side brake and turn signal wire. So now that we've identified them on the driver's side, we're going to repeat the same testing procedure and figure out the wires on the passenger side. So we went ahead and tested the right side connector as well, and they're in the same locations, they're just going to have different colored wires. Our brake and turn signal is going to be the green wire on the very end of our connector, and then our tail light wire is going to be the end pin on the top 3 row, which will be a white and orange colored wire for our tail lights. Now we're going to want to come back to our 4-pole wire, and we're going to split each wire so that they're not together anymore. And you're going to want to split it as far up towards the bumper as you can. We're going to need to get those wires up to the top of our tail light. So I'm going to take an airline tube that I had laying around. You can use a coat hanger or whatever else you have available. But if you look inside your tail light housing area, you can actually see straight down. So if you can actually get your arm and just reach down there and grab the wire, but it is kind of a reach, so we'll use this airline tube to pass down through. So we're going to start with our yellow, brown, and white wire, and we'll attach it to the bottom of the airline tube that came from the top. Just going to use some electrical tape. We don't have to worry about it falling when I start pulling it up. And for now, we're going to leave the green wire on the bottom. So we'll pull all the excess wire up top. And it's not a bad idea to look underneath and make sure it didn't get caught on anything and that we have it all up top here. So before we start making our connections with our wires, we're going to have to cut some of this tape off, exposing the factory wires inside. Now you just want to be extremely careful not to damage the wire. So if you can, you're going to want to try to pull away a little bit by your hand, and then if you need to, you can come back with a pair of scissors or a razor knife. With the wires exposed, we'll start with our yellow wire, which is going to be our turn signal and our brake. We'll estimate about how much wire we need to meet up with our other factory wire, and I'm going to trim off the excess. So we'll strip the end of the wire, and we're going to take one of our spade terminals, and we'll slide it over the bare wire and crimp it in place. Then we can grab one of our diodes, and you'll see that it's going to have 2 that say in and 1 that says out. We're going to want to plug our yellow wire into one of the in terminals. Doesn't matter which one it is, it just needs to go into the inside. We'll set that down for right now, and we're going to bring our attention to our factory wires. Now since our yellow wire is our brake and our turn signal, we're going to cut that wire in half, and we're going to strip back both ends. Then we'll crimp a spade terminal onto each end of the wire. We can grab our diode, and the one connector that's going to be closest to the taillight socket itself is going to go into the out terminal. The other one's going to go into the in terminal. Now we're going to grab our taillight circuit wire. We'll cut that in half, and we'll strip back both ends. We'll take our spades and crimp them on just like before. Grab another one of our diodes just like before. The one farthest is going to go into the in terminal, and then the one closest to the taillight socket is going to go into the out terminal. Now how we're going to hook up our brown wire is going to be just a little bit different. Kind of give yourself a little bit of slack like we did on the yellow wire so we can anchor it down. And we'll trim our brown wire, except this time we're going to hold on to the excess wire here. and we'll strip back the excess wire as well as the end of it. And we're going to take both of our wires, we're going to combine them together. Take another one of our spade terminals. And it's going to be a little bit of a tight fit, but you can just slide it over both wires. Make sure you have it securely on there. We're going to crimp it on. And this is going to go to the in terminal on our taillight diode. So we should have a loose wire coming out of that as well. This is going to get sent back down and meet up with our green wire and go over to the passenger side. Now our white wire, we're going to go ahead and trim back so we have a little bit of slack. And we'll strip back the end of it. And then we're going to be attaching a ring terminal from our kit. This is going to be our ground wire. So since we have a decent amount of room inside the taillight area, we'll take the included self-tapping screw and a 5/16 nut driver. I'm just going to go right into the sheet metal here. Now it's not a bad idea to kind of reach back, make sure there's nothing there that's going to interfere, but then we'll just attach it directly to it. I want to make sure that's snug enough that that ring terminal isn't going to move around. So I went ahead and wrapped my diodes, connectors, and all my wires up with some electrical tape and then anchored the excess so it wouldn't fall down underneath my Jeep. Now we're going to take that brown wire, meet up with our green wire, run it across the back of our Jeep, and use the same method to bring it up top to where our taillight is on the passenger side. And the passenger side is going to hook up exactly the same. We'll take our green wire and our brown wire. Brown wire will be for our taillight circuit, and the green wire will be for our brake and our turn signal circuit. All of our connections made. We can plug our taillights back in, lock down that red tab, and then reinstall our taillights. So now up front, we're going to be adding a 6-way instead of the 4-pole that's on the front. So we can take our cutters and cut our 4-pole connector off. We can trim a little bit of the excess wire. But again, you want to have enough so that it's on the outside of the bracket so we can work with everything. We can trim back just a little bit off of each one of our wires. We'll take our new plug. We're going to pull the dust cover off. Slide our wires through. And I'm going to push it behind the bracket. We're going to be out of the way, but it'll still be attached to the wires. Now in the back, our connector is going to be labeled, so we're just going to go around loosening the set screws and tightening everything down. TM is going to be for our trailer marker. That's going to be our brown wire. GD for ground, which will be our white wire. LT for left turn, it's our yellow wire. And RT for right turn, which is going to be our green wire. We'll start at the top and start connecting all of our wires. Now I always like to make sure that whenever I put my wire inside the terminal, I leave just a little bit of the wire exposed on top. That way I don't have to worry about connection issues because of the insulation getting inside the terminal. A lot of times that may cause kind of intermittent connections. So if you leave just enough to where you know it's all copper wire inside, but not enough to cause any kind of arcing and touching another terminal. So with our connections made, I'm going to slide the socket into place. That's a little bit of a tight fit, so I'm going to slide that into place and then put my dust cover on the back, make sure it locks in, and then we can always come back with some electrical tape to hide the bright colored wires on the front of our Jeep. So once you have all your wires tidy up front, you want to make sure you mount your plug. We just use the provided screws and nuts on the back and make sure it's nice and secure. Now we can go ahead and test our wires. So I have my Jeep hooked up to my tester to simulate in my motorhome. If I turn it on, we can see my taillights are working properly, as well as the turn signals and the brakes. All we have left to do now is hook up to our motorhome and hit the road. That'll finish up your look at the Demco taillight wiring kit, part number DM95239. 3010 on our 2018 Jeep Wrangler JL Unlimited.